So I wanted to do a quick video talking about something that has been in the news lately with the Twitter files, right? People have been talking about what the FBI was doing, how they were using Twitter, how they paid Twitter money, how they were monitoring social media, how they were, spying on American citizens, right? And this goes to like they were asking for location data for media outlets like RSBN News. Why would they need location data for them? Why would they be requesting it from Twitter? And of course, all of that without a warrant. And it got to the point where they were, asking Twitter to censor satire accounts that had very little reach, maybe like 300 followers. They were watching those accounts. So they had what they called a foreign interference task force. And that task force ballooned in size to 80 agents that were simply using, they were silencing and censoring Americans' political opinions. That's what it was, okay? But it's deeper than that. And there's an interesting connection to the FBI's the fake Michigan Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot. So I've been studying the case. Obviously, I'm making a documentary on it, and I'm working with a lot of people that were involved in that. Like, I'm interviewing a guy that's in prison right now, one of the guys facing life in prison that the government called a ringleader. This is a man who, he was a truck driver. He had 3 daughters. He lived in Delaware, and there's like he had no motivation to like try to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer because her mandates didn't even affect him, right? Not only that, but there's like literally no phone calls or text messages between him and his alleged co-conspirators, which is very bizarre because if you're engaged in a criminal enterprise, that like suggests that that you're in communication with people. There's none. He's not in any of their encrypted group chats or anything, so it's very strange. But there was a special agent who was one of the lead agents on the case. His name was Special Agent Jayson Chambers. And he was handling one of the lead informants, Big Dan Chappell. And Jayson Chambers is a very corrupt man. You can look at the discovery in the case where he's sending text messages to the informant saying things like, don't let the facts, we have a saying at our office here at the FBI, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Things like that. Things where he is directing informants to run things. Oh, bring this person in, try to get this person to show up to this event, trying to draw people into a plot that doesn't exist, as much as the FBI wanted it to. So what's interesting is that the government did not call him to testify at trial because one of the things that came out about Jayson Chambers was that while he was overseeing this case, he also simultaneously, as he's an FBI special agent, is running a private company called Exeintel, Exeintel, Exeintel. And so this company like bills itself as a private intelligence firm and claims that it does cybersecurity. And he tried to say that he wasn't involved in it and that it like wasn't his company, and then it came out that it was him. It was tracked down to the business registration was obviously him. But it had a Twitter account, and on Twitter, it was tweeting about having foreknowledge about that specific case, the Whitmer case. And it was saying things like, watch Michigan, big things to come, blah, blah, blah. And there are things that came out in discovery. Number one, Exeintel was seeking a multi-million-dollar contract to advise the federal government on cases of DT, while he's overseeing a sprawling fake DT investigation. So he stood to gain millions of dollars through his private company if he could get a big case like this. He also is in text messages and emails to other FBI agents where he's saying things like, oh yeah, I'm going to retire and then I'm going to segue into the private sector and I need a big case to like before he leaves the FBI is the implication. He had said something in text messages to another agent where he said like, oh, I'm going to run this as a TEI, whether I get the approval or not. A TEI is what it's a highest threat level terrorism case, and it stands for Terrorism Enterprise Investigation. And what that means, if you get a TEI classification, is that you essentially have access to like all of the resources at the disposal of the FBI. So they spent about $6 million trying to manufacture a fake DT case. That's what happened. So, as you look at Exeintel, the more that you look into it, it's very interesting. He was also trying to get cybersecurity contracts with state governments. There's an email that came out about that where he was talking about, oh yeah, Exeintel is about to go live, and he said he was reallocating resources from the FBI to a private company. And then he was talking about, oh yeah, we've got this new emerging technology, 3D laser modeling, and how he wanted to use that to supplement his resume. He had contacts in the media that he was working with also. And so it's very interesting when you look at that, and you start looking at like the CIA's In-Q-Tel program. So In-Q-Tel is the CIA's venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, and what it does is it invests in emerging and new technology. In-Q-Tel is invested in many social media sites, right? A lot of them got their funding through CIA research grants. Like, for example, Google has its origins in a joint CIA NSA research grant. Facebook was a DARPA program called LifeLog under the Total Information Awareness umbrella, right? So, like, you can look at this stuff and say, gee, this is, yeah, all very interesting. So, what appears to be happening is that the FBI got jealous of the CIA's In-Q-Tel and their access to tech firms and technology companies. As you can see from the Twitter files, the FBI was having to go to social media sites like Twitter and ask them to do things. Oh, take this down, or, blah, blah, blah. They were paying them too. Like, the FBI had to pay Twitter something like $3.4 million. And so what it looks like is that perhaps the FBI wanted to create their own in-house version of the CIA's In-Q-Tel, and that perhaps that's what they were going to do with Exeintel. And it seems like that definitely could be the case, and also maybe why Jayson Chambers did not take the stand in his own case. This was his case. He was the one that got it a TEI, got the TEI signed off on by FBI Special Agent Charles Story. He's the one who ultimately approved the TEI for this sham hoax case. But yeah, I would encourage people to look into that. Look into In-Q-Tel and look into Exeintel. EXE Intel. Because I think there's something very interesting there, where the FBI wanted to have their own domestic version of In-Q-Tel and for domestic spying on American citizens, and also to be able to engage in things like fifth generation warfare, right? Reality perception management, reality creation. Fifth generation warfare talks about things like, instead of having to adapt to the battlefield, like, you create it. You create reality so you can control it. You don't have to adapt to a battlefield that is already there. Like, you make the battlefield. And so there's something very interesting about why they would want access to social media companies, and why they would want the ability to maybe bypass them, to have some kind of big domestic spying, but also social engineering, right? Anyways, another thing that you see in the Whitmer case is like with Facebook. So obviously, I'm sure the FBI is doing this on Twitter as well. And I wonder if that will come out in more Twitter files. But what the FBI was doing was having their informants create Facebook groups, right? For fake militia groups that didn't exist, and then funneling people into these groups. And they were administered and run by the FBI. Some not just by FBI informants, but actual FBI agents were managing these pages and running them. And there was a lot of that going on Facebook. I suspect the same thing is happening on Twitter as well. We know that Twitter was involved in helping the U.S. Army run psychological operations. So this is just a lot of very interesting things, and I would encourage people to look more into FBI Special Agent Jayson Chambers. He spells his name different. He spells it Jayson, Jayson Chambers, and then look into Exeintel, and look into In-Q-Tel, 5th generation warfare, and things like that. Just something interesting that is in the news lately, and I thought, as I'm working on this documentary on this case, this is something that we've been talking about and looking at, and I thought I would share it with you now because I think it's kind of relevant. So if anybody learns anything or finds anything, let me know in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear it, or you can also email me. My email address is on the About page, I think, of my YouTube channel. So yeah, I hope everybody has a good night. Read!